She told us. It doesn't look like anyone has joined us.
Also ended the meeting last summer.
Oh, yeah.
Remember she said something?
Yeah.
Was it like right after something, like, what did she say? She said something and everyone's like, okay, meeting over.
So we have Merit coming, and I mean, we could have asked the stragger coming to the show.
I'm in a rush.
Whenever you want to begin, you can begin, because it is noon. Oh, hi, Chris. Come on in. Grab some food if you're hungry. And join us. We didn't sit at the table.
Should we wait for lunch? Wait till you're all done? No one speaks with their mouth full?
Sure. Do you want to get something? How's commercial real estate going?
Good. Not good in the way residential is. I mean, what you guys must be imagining. Tough right now. So it's never that good. Don't be sorry, we're just stuck now. We didn't
We
start.
didn't start yet.
Okay,
And
all right.
We're gonna hang out.
Open to formal here, can I say speaker or should I?
Whatever you,
It's not a
you
big
can
matter.
keep it formal.
I am.
Meredith, you want to grab some food? There's food over there.
This will talk, I mean, right? So I don't know most of you, my name is John Mikoley, work for Pyramid Brokerage. I've been doing this probably it'll be 22 years this year. Moved to this area then. I grew up was born in New York City, born and raised in Queens. I worked for M&T Bank in New York. I was in banking before I started doing this. M&T Bank was not well known at all in New York City. When I started working there, actually, it wasn't even, that division wasn't even called M&T Bank. It was a small savings bank called East New York Savings Bank, which was part of the M&T, what was later called the M&T Bank Corp, part of the M&T empire. Met a woman from Lancaster, New York, wound up getting married and moving here in 2000. Actually rented, when I first moved here, lived probably a half mile from here, 5692 Broadway, an apartment right down the street. A few months later, we bought a house in the village. Liked it a lot. I mean, moving here as an outsider, I think people who, it felt like home right away. I think people who grew up here maybe don't realize sometimes how good it is, even Buffalo in general, not just a small town like Lancaster. But it's a good town to do business in. Meaning West New York. It's a good right-sized town. It's easy to know people, and it did feel like home right away. So I tried being an outsider, still coming here and knowing nobody in this business is tough. I didn't know the area. I didn't know people, and I knew very little. So it was a bit of a disadvantage, but tried getting involved in the community, different boards and things like that. And Shannon watching, is she here? You hear Shannon?
I don't think she's connected yet.
So I know Shannon's been the same way too. I mean, I've gotten to know Shannon over the years and she would be on different boards. We tried getting involved in the community. My wife, about 4 years ago, she'd been with M&T Bank for so long. I just even say how long. Makes it obvious how old we are. So I don't even like to say how many. It was a lot of years, and she just started not liking the job anymore, being sick of it. And she'd always wanted to open up her own business, a small, like a home decor type store. And a lot of people go through life wanting to do things and never doing it. And then one day, a few years ago, she sat me down and she said, look, I'm 50 years old. It's okay to say that. So I'm 50 years old. I deserve to do what I want with my life. So she really wanted to do it. So she opened up a little shop in the village, built in Maple on West Main Street.
Oh, okay.
That was, yeah, so hopefully some of you have been there. I usually would see Deb there when we have wine events. Usually we have sipping shops there. So it's a fun.
The sipping shops are fun.
Yeah. Every September there's sipping shops. Now we're doing 3 or 4 times a year. No, September is the wine walk. About 3 or 4 times a year, there's a separate sip and shop, which is basically like the wine walk, except it's free. It's just run by the merchants. It's been the timing for doing that was great. There's been a lot of growth in the village over the past few years. It was a good time, as much as I said it was a good time to, much as I said I was trying to get involved in the area. Having the shop brings it to a whole different level, where you meet people, you meet neighbors in a whole different way. When the shop opened in June of 18, and during the month or so beforehand, we were there pretty much every day, setting things up, and shed curtains over the windows so nobody could see what was inside. And one night I was there, probably 9 o'clock at night, taking out garbage, and some woman comes over with the dog. She's walking and says, well, "What are you doing here? It's going to be a restaurant?" Or I explained to her. She said, "Oh, I live right on the corner. I live on Park Boulevard." I said, "So do I." She says, "I'm number 50. What number are you?" 49. I didn't recognize it. So with that, my wife looks out and she recognized the woman lived diagonally across the street from us. I realized then, oh, that's who she is. Because her father used to always walk the dog, and her father passed away. But it was weird because sometimes you don't know your neighbors. I mean, I know a few of them, and I didn't know the woman who was diagonally across the street from me. But having the shop gets us to know more people. It's just a strange. So it's been a lot of fun. Getting back to our business, to the commercial real estate business, I started there August of 2000. And again, I just moved here a few months before. So what happened I think in June, I had accepted the job, had to get my license. That took time. And I spent that time driving around, just trying to get to know the area, because I literally did not know any of these streets. But I had back in the day, we'd have a real map, a Hagstrom's map. There was a spiral one, if you remember the way they used to be. And I would figure out where the commercial areas were and just drive up and down Niagara Falls Boulevard, Sheridan Drive, wherever it may be. And I got really good at the time. And I think I'm still better than anybody. I could tell you every street in Western New York, if it has a street number, like Sheridan Drive is 324. I got to know every one of those just by checking the maps. I could always tell you that. I could always tell you where the nearest Tim Hortons is in the intersection as well, just from having to make stops. But that's how I learned the market. And when I started Pyramid the first day, my boss took me into our conference room for the training, and he opens up a big map, and he takes out a highlighter, and he highlights, I remember, Niagara Falls Boulevard and certain business parks here and there, Amherst Development Park, this and that. And it's like, I'm like, what? He says, well, go to those places. So it's just in the beginning all about cold calling. That's, well, what do I say? What do I do? So that's difficult in the beginning. I mean, and we had to do a lot of cold calling. I never liked it. Still don't like it. I don't do much anymore, but occasionally you still have to. But it was weird then going out and, not knowing. So I'd meet with someone and they would talk about different things. Well, this building, that building, I had no idea what they were talking about. So I'd take it a lot, or admit right away that I didn't know. We have in our office, we have sales meetings twice a week, Tuesday and Fridays, conference room like this, and there's usually about 20 of us. We do it virtually now, but at the time we meet in the conference room. And in the conference room, I remember the first one I went to, we go around the table and just talk. My boss leads and says, what's new in the real estate world? You talk about a new listing, a new assignment, you're looking to this, you're looking to that. Also talk about just any news. So if we say such and such is building a building, this company is moving, this company is that. The first one I went to, I was like shocked at what the detail of what these people knew. That somebody would bring up a building and I'd say, oh yeah, that's owned by so-and-so. And he has 2 dogs and this and that. And it's like, I thought, just no way I can do this. But after a certain amount of time, just like in any business, you start to learn, and what seems at first to be overwhelming, you learn. And at some point, then you're the one who pretty much knows everything. It took some time, but after a few years, I knew what I was doing. In our business, we work with 4 main property types: investment, office, industrial, and retail. And all of those 4, 3 of those 4 involve companies relocating. Except for investment, they're all companies relocating. So for us, the big, what we're always looking for, what's always business for us, what's always leads, is whenever a company is relocating. By the way, when I'm talking, please, if you have questions, stop me and say something and we can ask at the end, but.
Shannon actually joined us too. She's on mute right now, but she's listening. And if you want to
Hi, Shannon.
ask her anything, she'll. There she is.
You'll jump in with questions, I'm sure, if you have them.
You guys can hear me okay, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. Good. Welcome, John. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So in our business, there's so many different steps involved to actually making money. Just like in yours, you don't know, you have to find a client and, you know, service them and finally get paid. For us, for majority of business, like I said, is when there's a company that needs to relocate. And that comes about in a few different ways. One of them is the biggest one probably is company needs more space. So outside of referrals, and at this point, yeah, the majority of the business I get is either repeat business or referrals, but you can't just rely on that. I'm learning that the hard way. Outside of referrals, how do we do that? And how do we find these new companies that need to relocate? And for us, for a company that needs more space, the easiest way to do it in the suburbs anyway is the parking lot. If I'm driving by a building and I see that the parking lot's full every day, there's cars parked in the street, that's just a red flag that they probably need more space. That there's something going on there. I get so attuned into that if I'm driving around, I notice that I don't look for it necessarily, but just see it out of the corner of the eye. Just like I'll see a new sign that goes up. I'm sure I just see any change in the building. So that's to me a red flag that something needs to be done there. If there's a parking lot that's full every day, that business owner probably has some sort of an issue that they need more space. The opposite is if you see a building that's got a 50-car parking lot and there's only 5 or 10 cars in it, okay, now maybe their space is too big for them. Something happened. Of course, that changed with COVID. With that, you know, so past few years, that's changed. But there's also two different plays there. If I see a building that's got an empty parking lot, I want to know, number one, who's the business owner, but number two, who owns the building as well. Because if they don't own it and they're going to need to relocate, there's two possible leads where there's somebody who owns a building that at some point, as soon as it's going to be vacant, they're going to need to market that space either for sale or for lease. So there's just a few different opportunities there. I mean, what I do is normally reach out to the owner to see where they're coming from, if they are going to be looking to relocate, and then we hopefully help them find a space. Another thing could be just if they're in a space that's too costly, that if you're paying, you know, and everything in our business is done price per square foot. If someone's in an office space and they're paying $25 a square foot and they don't need that type of space, it's always a good lead as well. Try to reach out to them. Another one is leases expiring. It happens often where a company will have a lease expiring and they don't renew it on time and they think it's not going to be a big issue. It happens often. The first one that I remember that hit me was very nowhere the Five Guys is on Transit, not in Lancaster, but in Amherst, off of Maple, in front of Lowe's. Where the Lowe's Plaza is on the right-hand side, there's a Five Guys. That used to be Pizza Plant. And about probably 15 years ago, they were working with, unfortunately, a broker who was in my office. They were looking to buy a new building. And they had a lease that was coming up within, I don't know if it was 6 months or a year. And the truth is, if you know you need to get out within 6 months or a year, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. You don't have that much time. You don't have a lot of time to mess around. They were looking to buy a building. At the time, nothing was available. They just couldn't close on a deal. They had a lease that was coming up. And unfortunately, the advice they were given them by the broker was, don't worry about it. They'll never kick you out. At the end, and the truth is, it's hard to just, I mean, you have an option. And if you have a lease coming up for renewal, okay, you can try to renew it short term. But larger spaces like that, normally the owners won't let you do just a 1 year lease. They're gonna want another 5 year lease. So it puts you in a jam. Am I gonna renew for 1 year? Am I gonna, you may not be able to. What they didn't know, the pizza plant guys, was that 5 guys was in the market. 5 guys apparently had looked at their space, and at one point they got booted for 5 guys. And it was a lesson learned the hard way. It happens often with big and small users. It's just an unfortunate situation. All I can say is it's not that uncommon, and it's happened.
Was that Atlanta Bread before it was Pizza Plant? That was my
Yes.
family was in that building.
They bought that, so they later bought, because with Pizza Plant, they got booted from there, and they didn't have a new location for a while. But the place they bought was Atlanta Bread.
Yeah,
on the corner of Sheridan. Family operated that?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. But they didn't, and I think they were aiming to buy that building then. They didn't buy it until maybe 6 months later, so. They also had a space at Walker Center 1.2 before they opened the Canal Side. So, yeah, but good example right there, that if you don't have your ducks in a row, and I see it happen often, and it's just, it's unfortunate, but it does happen. Another one is that for companies just going out of business, and this is a delicate one. So if I hear that ABC business is going to be closing, and I know that somebody else owns that building, that's potentially someone owns a building that at some point is going to be vacant. They're going to need help. So I try to reach out to them, and it can be delicate because you don't necessarily want to be the one to call the landlord and say your tenant's going to be closing. So it's a rough situation. If they're going out of business, anytime there's going to be a vacant building, is somebody's going to need your services, our services. We're not even getting to how we service them and how we, sell a building yet, but now we're just talking about opportunities. Another one is a merger or acquisition. These are always interesting. So if 2 companies, let's say 2 accounting firms merge, they're gonna have 2 separate offices. Most likely there's no reason for them to have 2 offices, and they're gonna combine them at one point. So 2 things going on there, there's gonna be a vacant building again, and whether they own it or not, someone's gonna own the building that's vacant. What happened to my office, we years ago had bought another company called Burlow Real Estate that was downtown in the Rand building. We were at the time looking for space, and this thing came up. The Burlow space wound up being much bigger than they needed, so we wound up moving down there. We've been down there for years. Another facet of this is often when someone buys a company, let's say you own a widget company and I buy your widget company. I'm going to move into your space maybe, and maybe you own the building. So you're gonna sell me the business, and you'll lease the building to me for, let's say, 5 years. What happens often is, and maybe you're selling me the business and you're going to hold paper. So at the end of 5 years, I'm going to keep paying you. Right now, we're all lovey-lovey. I love to buy your business. You love to sell it to me. You're happy. I'm happy. As time goes on, things change. So, a few years could go on, and you're going to realize, well, maybe everything you told me when you sold me the business wasn't really correct. And now the building is getting old, and I want him to replace the rugs, and he won't do it. And I want him to replace the furnace shop. So I'm not going to say invariably, but often what happens as time goes on, that relationship changes. And now as 4 or 5 years go on, you own the building, you own the business, you don't want to stay anymore. You think you overpaid, I think you underpaid. At some point after a sale of a business like that, often what happens in the future is the relationship has changed a lot, and they really want to, both parties want out. So that's always an opportunity. And then one other simple one is just if space is outdated. So if I go into someone's office, I learned years ago, you just look for certain things. You look to see if it fits, and use this as an office example, post retail or industrial. If you see things, if there are carpets that are just worn and haven't been replaced in years, it's a good opportunity for someone to want to relocate. I'm doing 2 interesting assignments right now. They're kind of similar but different. One of them is a client who's a newer client who bought a plaza, older plaza in Cheektowaga. and it has, I think 8 tenants. Most of them are small. Most of them are between 600 to 1,000 square feet. There's one large 12,000 square foot tenant. This place has been very low paying tenants for the past, God knows how many years. And the building shows there's tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. So he's hired me to go and, well, there's 2 small vacancies that hopefully we'll fill, but more so to go and meet with the current tenants to renew the leases. And so he'll pay a fee for that. He'll pay a reduced fee to say, just go meet with these tenants. I keep saying, I don't know what I'm doing. This is your business. Go meet with them, see what they're paying. If it's fair, we'll renew at that same rate. If not, we'll increase the rent. So I went through and met with 7 different tenants, I think, and started with the larger one because they're the most important, they're paying the most rent by far. And their space was just a dump at this point. And coincidentally, they were in this building because they bought some print shops. They bought it from prior owner, I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago. And there's roof leaks. The carpet looks like it hadn't been changed in 30 years. But they're paying a really low rate, and they realize that. So when I spoke to, they're based out of town, when I spoke to the director of finance, I told her, yeah, their lease was up, by the way, this month. So I told her, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a lot of improvements, gonna be doing a new roof, we'll change the carpet. But the problem was, what I explained to all these tenants was, yeah, the guy didn't do any repairs, but you were all paying so low. So there's different types of landlords. This was a guy who was just letting his tenants pay well under market, below market. But in reality, in his defense, it's not much you can do when they're paying so low. And I even ran the numbers to show them the amount that he was netting after taxes and everything, insurance, and it was next to nothing. So that's the kind of owner he was. Trying to show them this new owner from day one, he's going to put a new facade on. I mean, within the first month, they're going to see a lot of changes. That's the good news. Bad news is you need to pay more rent now. And I think also, so some of the tenants of the, I think it was 7 existing tenants, the larger one, she understood, and she said, and then I said to her, look, we don't want to be hard on you because I said, assuming you already did your budget for the year, and we don't want to increase the rent a lot this month. And she actually leveled with me and told me, yeah, this is what I budgeted for. She's paying, I think, like $4,300 a month now. She said I budgeted for $5,900. So we're going to get their rent is going to increase modestly over 7. No, I say modestly, but probably about 20% the first year, and over 7 years will increase. By the end of the 7 years, or by the 6th year, it'll be about double what they're paying now. But they'll get all kinds of improvements. So hopefully they'll be happy. And the important part is to have them stay. Nobody wants the tenants out, but they need to pay better. Another assignment I'm doing is in Wheatfield. There's a office park that's in receivership. It's in foreclosure. And the receiver was just appointed a few weeks ago. So there's 10 buildings, total of about 240,000 square feet. There's 17 tenants right now and about 7 vacancies. And I'm hired by the receiver, first off, really to renew the existing tenants. And then secondly, hopefully to lease up some vacant spaces. The receiver is solely appointed by the court, and the receiver is there, represents the assets. So you want to make sure the bank is involved, want to make sure that the asset is protected, and hopefully increases or at least maintains its value. So our job is we went out 2 or 3 weeks ago, met with the 17 tenants. They were being served with what's called a notice to return, which is the receiver going out, giving them a notice saying, first of all, stop paying rent to the other party. Now here's a court order that says rent now comes to me as receiver. He hired a managing agent as well. We met with those 17 tenants, and of the 17, probably 13 immediately gave huge complaints about the current ownership, and the current management said they were never here. Here's roof leaks, here's that. From little minor stuff to major stuff. My job in that is to speak to the ones, we have some coming up for renewal, and to renew those leases long-term, and like I said, hopefully get new ones. But in this case, the managing agent is visiting the property once a week. He's gonna be there every Thursday. He's done 3 times so far. And hopefully conveying to the owners, look, we know you weren't happy here for good reason. They treated you like, it's changing now. So we have to wait until there's enough money, but they'll make all the improvements that the prior owners didn't do, and hopefully in the long run they'll stay and pay more rent. I'm gonna talk about just breaking down the market, shifting gears a little bit. So, Deb, you said when we first sat down, how is the market? It's different. So if we go through the different property types, office, retail, industrial, and investment. The most questionable right now is office and retail. So the office market here in Western New York, particularly in the suburbs, has been soft for years. And I mean more so for leasing than for buying. There's a lot of, and pre-COVID just as well, there's just a lot of vacant office space for lease. If you have a listing right now trying to lease office space in the suburbs, it's not easy. Smaller buildings for sale will sell. They've always sold pretty strongly. A building like this should sell pretty strongly in as long as they're in good locations. As far as COVID goes, there's the big question mark. I think that the question still hasn't been answered because my office is downtown. I'm in the Rand building. And my parking rent is still only about maybe 50% full, maybe less. Some large companies, M&T is not fully back. I'm not sure when they will be back. Some large companies, independent health is pretty much, and HSBC, pretty much staying virtual. So there's large blocks of office space that just won't be occupied again by the prior owner, by the prior tenants because of COVID. So there's also the reason this is going to take a long time, I think, to play out is because, like I said earlier, these companies all have long leases, so their leases aren't up yet. So if I'm independent health, as an example, okay, maybe you've told your employees that they're not going to come back. Independent health is not a good example, but maybe you told your employees you're not going to come back, but you still have maybe 3 years left on this lease. So the long-term impact of this, I think we're not going to see for a few years, and it's unknown. Downtown is, before COVID, we were having a resurgence for a lot of years, for quite a while. There are buildings downtown. The best way to describe it is there are a lot of buildings in the city of Buffalo, multi-story brick buildings that a few years ago, 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago, nobody cared about. Nobody, you could have a, old building, nobody had occupied it in decades, nobody cared about it. And something turned where with all the redevelopment going downtown, that they're all being converted. And of course, what happens is, I'm sure you guys run into this every day, owners get greedy. So you have a building that was worth nothing a few years ago, nobody wanted it. And then it sells for $500,000. Now, the next person you speak to says, well, he sold his for 500, I want $1.5 million, mine. And it just gets on and on. It's gotten to the point where most of the redevelopment, anybody who was trying to get into it a few years ago was too late. Most of the redevelopment has happened. You've seen, I'm sure, all buildings downtown that were been changed and redeveloped over the years. That's been great. That's been great. Yeah, I don't know if any of that is going to change with COVID. I don't think it will. So everything should still be going well. The retail sector of the market, again, it's hard to predict. If you look at small retail, look in the village of Lancaster, there's virtually no vacancies. I think that the small retailers are bouncing back fine from COVID for the most part. Larger ones, of course, what happens where, we used to have 4 malls here. Now it's going to be down to 1. Even the Galleria is, maybe we've seen stories in the paper, the Galleria has technically financially has problems because they have a loan for, I forget the amount of millions, that's due next month. And it's just not worth it anymore. So they can't refinance it, they're going to wind up probably having to extend it. Of course, McKinley Mall and Galleria and Boulevard will all face future redevelopment. So long-term retail, I think it's a difference between big box and smaller. And it's just too hard to predict. You know, I think that when COVID started, two years ago, March, when we were all sitting home, I know you guys were doing virtual showings, I guess, but I remember thinking like, you know, what's going to happen? And I think that the number of restaurants, for instance, that closed down, I don't think was nearly as great as it could have been. I remember thinking, how are any of them going to stay in business? We went out Friday night, tried going out to eat without reservations around here. Couldn't get anywhere. Went to Yellow
On the
Goat.
weekend,
No.
it's not easy.
Yeah, I've tried calling Clarksburg. No, I tried calling 99, wound up at the Owl Tree. If you try to say, so I don't know how restaurants are doing, but it's hard to imagine that they're not doing, some of them aren't doing well because there's no place to get in sometimes. Moving on to the industrial market. The industrial market, not only in West New York, but throughout the country, pre-COVID and post-COVID has been hotter and better than ever. My office does a quarterly report, market research report, that shows the vacancy to be only about 5%. There's another company locally, CBRE, which does a report as well. They always get very good publicity with theirs. And their report showed to be about 2.1%. The difference is we use in our report, the person from my office who does it uses buildings. We keep a very large database of cataloging all buildings locally. And for our report, she uses buildings, I think that are 10,000 square feet and above. For CB's report, they use 50,000 square feet and above. Either way, whether the vacancy is 2% or 5%, it makes it very difficult to do deals. And I know you folks are going through that as well. Just if you're looking to buy a house right now, it's got to be so frustrating. And even going back, years before COVID, this was the case where if I met someone, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago who was looking for, let's say, 15,000 square feet of warehouse, I would put together a tour and we'd go out and have probably 7 or 8 different sites. Now it's not like that. Now, maybe if they're looking to buy, there's going to be probably nothing. If they're looking to lease, there'll be a few options. Of course, lease rates have gone up because of the market. So a few years ago, right before COVID, I remember thinking and having a conversation with a few people in my office that the market was doing so well. And we were in, the US economy was in, it was the longest growth period ever. It was, I think the record had been 120 months, and we were, I think as of February 2020, when it all changed, it went up to 128 months. So that means the market was doing better longer than ever in history before. I remember saying, not joking, but I was serious, and we need, it's not going to go on forever, and we kind of need a little something to happen to ease things up. Because in our business, there's, whether the market is good or bad, there's always opportunities. But in that case, when there's no inventory, it's hard to do deals. When I said, I remember thinking, talking to people saying, what's it going to be next? There's always something that next shoe to drop. We didn't think it was going to be what it was. That come March of 2020, what happened would happen. But even then, I remember, sitting home and thinking, what the heck is going to happen? And how's this going to impact real estate values? And who knew what would happen, that it would keep going up? So having such a strong industrial market is good and bad. But the way I've explained to people is, put it this way: if my family were billionaires who were in the real estate development business right now, I would have hoped that they left me industrial. They had an industrial portfolio instead of, let's say, a retail portfolio. I wouldn't have wanted to have my parents own a mall as opposed to large industrial portfolio right now, anyway. Not that I wouldn't want them all, but I mean, you'd be better off with industrial. And then investment properties, same thing, just as it was pre-COVID, and the investment market here was hotter than it ever was. Whether it's apartments or single or small plazas, good good way to talk about investment properties is one of the easiest, not easiest, but the easiest to really talk about is what's called the single tenant net leased property. And what that is picture, up until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, we used to get Rite Aids built on, every corner. Remember, up until 08, it was when the market crashed in 08 that we stopped getting so many Rite Aids. But in the go-to right now are Dollar Generals. So Dollar Generals are kind of the new Rite Aids. Dollar Generals are showing up everywhere. You're gonna have one.
Yeah, there's another one coming right close here, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Where is it gonna be?
Right before the vacant lot used to be a nursery, right before the backside, rear side deli, whatever it's called.
Side door
Side door
deli?
deli, yeah.
So the right of the side door deli? That's what I thought, but I wasn't positive.
They're planning for the zoning board tomorrow. I'm actually on the zoning board. They're planning for the zoning board.
That's where I always buy all my pumpkins and stuff during that. They have
I
like
think
little
they put them there,
sales.
even though it's not their property. So I think that's not their
Yeah,
property. They
I
put
think,
them
yeah.
there.
Right.
So as investments are sold in our on what's called a cap rate. And a cap rate is in essence a rate of return. So think of it as if you have a duplex. The duplex, make up numbers here, make it easy. Let's say the duplex, each unit rents for $3,000 a month, that's $36,000 a year. You have to figure what your net income. If the taxes are $10,000 and after you pay your bills, let's just say it nets $20,000 a year. That's your net operating income. Everything is based on that. Then there's something called a cap rate. Cap rate is in essence the rate of return. If it was a 10 cap, that's a 10% rate of return on that example that netted 20,000 a year. Simple math, 10 cap would be 200,000. Investment properties like the Dollar Generals are selling at 5 to 6% cap. So as an example, the Dollar General in Depew, if anyone remembers it, on Walden, that was just built maybe a year ago on Walden Avenue, just west of Transit. When that was in development, I had heard they were appearing before the planning board for a new Dollar General. So it was way before construction was even started. And I looked up the developer, I contacted them because I got a few clients who say they want to buy those. The way those are priced, that building in Depew, and I don't know anything about this one yet, but use that one as an example. It's 9,000 square foot building. The developer builds it and sells it off after it's built. Dollar General is a tenant. Dollar General is paying $12 a square foot net, which means net means that they then pay, it's called triple net. So Dollar General pays not only the rent, but that the owner then nets $12 a square foot because Dollar General pays the taxes, the insurance, the snow plowing, everything. So that one was 9,000 square feet, $12 a square foot. They were netting, it's $108,000 a year that it nets. If you bought that, you $108,000 a year. When I first spoke to those developers, they were marketing that at about this is probably 2 years ago, at a 6.5 cap. And I forget what the numbers came out to, but I could just figure it right now. If you want to do it, you say $108,000 a year divided by 6.5%, 1.661 million. That's at a 6.5 cap. Today, because the market has gotten so much better, they're selling at lower cap rates. Lower cap rate means a higher sell price. So today that may be about a 5.5 cap, which would be 1.96 million. So as the market gets better with interest rates having been lower for so long, they're changing now, the investment market is great if you're a seller because you're getting better returns than ever. Very tough if you're a buyer because it's harder to get into than ever. But that's how we're just when you see these Dollar Generals going up all the time, that's how they work. The Dollar General never owns them. It's just a developer who finds a space for them. Dollar General says we need to be in this area. With Rite Aid, I've done them with Rite Aid. They have they have the knowledge to be able to say we have to go to this specific area. So it's interesting doing retail deals with larger companies because you see a little bit about the way they focus and where they want to be. So investment market is incredibly hot, and I'm not sure how long that's going to keep up for, probably for quite a while. Apartments are worth more per unit and lower cap rates than ever. If you've got clients who own apartments, I've been saying it to people for a few years, and I always say, look, I hate sounding like a salesperson type thing to say, oh, now you should sell now, but it's true. It's true. I mean, when I speak to people in apartments, and if they don't want to sell them, the point is they're probably worth more now than maybe they'll ever be. I'm not sure how long this market can continue for. And apartments are really interesting because we're in Western New York is in a stagnant or less than stagnant growth. I think Erie County last census had some people for the first time in like 50 years. I was a few years ago, I was having lunch with a client at Frank's down the street. And this guy's in the multifamily, in the apartment business. He owns a lot of apartments. And when we were there, they were building the apartments that are there now. The apartments were under construction behind and next to Frank's. So we're having lunch, and he says, points to the apartments, he says, where are these people coming from? And he wasn't being sarcastic, or it wasn't a rhetorical question. He means literally, there's so many apartments going up in Western New York. Where are the people coming from? I don't know the answer. I mean, maybe you folks know the answer better. That, are they younger people who are not homeowners yet? Are they older people who are empty nesters? Where are the people come from? I don't know. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, or who's renting the apartments.
So I deal a lot with the Valley community. There's a lot of people relocating from New York City from other areas that are higher in regards to home price or rental price. So they're relocating because compared to where they are, California, New York City, Virginia, Maryland, it's very expensive.
The immigrant community is great in the city of Buffalo. Absolutely. I mean, what's been done on the east side from yeah, it's just the transformation that the immigrant community has done there is amazing. Is been nothing but great. That's part of it. I mean, there are people, medical campus, for instance, you do get people who come from Boston, New York, or wherever. And to think that, get an apartment here for only $2,500, my gosh, yeah, that's great. I don't know if it's answering the question as far as where they at here, are they in the suburbs, who it is, but it's just that, the investment market right now is just been a little crazy in a good way if you're an owner. It's a bad way if you're a seller. The problem with dealing with investment properties is that, every time I speak to someone who owns one, I'll never meet someone who owns apartments without asking a question. I say, I have to ask, do you want to sell? The issue always is, what am I going to do with the money? So because of what am I going to do with the money? Then I need to do a 1031 tax deferred exchange. And I'd love to say, just pay your taxes. I don't care what you do with the money. But nobody wants to do that. So that's always the issue. That's why, breaking into the investment market is difficult. I'd say one thing in my business, if I was to wrap it up one way and compare it to yours, is it takes a different type of patience. I helped my in-laws a few years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago. They bought their house, sold their house, and bought a new one. And I knew that the agent who was working with them, I knew him. And when they put their house in the market, I said to him, do me a favor, just treat me as if I'm their agent. I wasn't getting paid for it, but don't call them, call me, deal with me. So when they had the offers, we sat down in his office, and they had, I don't know, about 4 offers, and went through all the 4 offers and recommended, which, gave the pros and cons of each one. We decided to accept one of them or counter whatever it was, I don't remember. But he's going through the details. And he sits down and he says, going through the personal property and the contract, is there anything that you want to keep? My father-in-law, who was probably 78 at the time, all of a sudden he says, you know what? He says, there's in the garden, there's this one little, it was some sort of stupid little home decor thing in the garden. I don't know what it was like a rock. And he says, I want to keep that rock. And I would be, if I was putting together a contract for my business and somebody was talking about a rock, I would just be kind of like, I don't think I'd have the patience for it, because we don't normally deal with smaller things. But he was absolutely so patient that and I thought, I guess that's how you do it. The patience The short-term patients that you have, I'm not good at. I would have a hard time with. But one thing, if you're ever thinking of getting into the commercial real estate business, that you need is long-term patience. When I meet someone, if I meet someone who's a potential client, I know there's no way I'm gonna close a deal. I'm making money with them for, I don't even think about it, but it's gonna be well over a year. You know, if it's a year, if it's a few years, that's fine. In your business, I'm assuming most of your transactions go quicker than in mine. Your business is also much higher volume than mine. But, you know, it's a different type of patience. I don't mind working on something for years. I have a listing right now, and this is a horrible example. I shouldn't even brag about it, but I'll tell you, I have a listing right now I've had for 12 years.
Oh.
And the reason it's been so long, so it's a self-storage facility in Tonawanda. It's got major environmental issues. It at this point cannot be sold. I renew the listing every year because they're doing, it's a you know, former paint factory. They're spending hundreds of, it'll probably come close to $1 million they have to spend on it. During that time, it can't be sold, but I renew it every year. The reason I do is I get a lot of leads out of it. A few years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I was curious. I just went back. I keep a spreadsheet of all my deals and I go back to see where they came from. I know I've met a lot of people and done deals. I counted back then. It was the deals that I did from people I met there. And it was either $5 or $6 million of deals. I don't remember what it was. And that was probably 4 years ago. So it takes a different type of patience. At some point, this property will probably be sellable. Hopefully I'll be able to sell it. In the meantime, I just, yeah, what I do is just, I speak to everyone who calls on it, and I keep names and numbers and tell them all the same thing, that once the time comes, I will call you and hopefully it'll sell very quickly. In the meantime, the good news is the value's been rising because what I was just talking about before, the market getting so much better. Right now, it's worth probably about 1.6 million. A few years ago, it was maybe only worth $1 million or maybe even less. So that's the good news is, you know, the long-term patience hopefully pays off.
Where are you listing the property that you're getting the leads from? Is it from your company website or is it
From the
from
website, all from the website.
just from the Pyramid
Yeah.
website? You don't list it anywhere else?
No, I don't have that on LoopNet. LoopNet has changed a lot over the years. And I even, like, when I was sitting in the parking lot, I had a text as a residential agent who wants for her son. And I keep telling her, we can't. And she keeps asking, what if it pays cash? What if it pays cash? And just, you can't. So LoopNet has changed a lot over the years. LoopNet used to be free. And it was kind of like the go-to. There is no, back up a little bit by saying there's no commercial MLS. So the companies like Hunt or Hannah, the companies that have residential divisions, I believe they put all their listings, the commercial listings on MLS as well, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We've never been part of MLS. We don't belong to it.
Yeah, if we have commercial listings here, we'll put it into the MLS. But
Yeah.
I'm just kind of trying to see what you do as well to see if you get any other.
We used to put so everything goes on our website, and that generates a lot. It's up to each one of us to have a LoopNet account if we want to, because they used to be for free. I have a LoopNet right now, and I only pay for one listing at a time. It's not worth doing. LoopNet to me hasn't generated much recently in the past few years, but all the leads, most of the leads we get, then the ones I'm talking about are all from our website.
Does your website have connectivity to any other larger websites across the country or anything, or is it just?
No.
Just your website?
No, it's just our website.
Does your website feed in from it with any other companies as well, or just?
No. Just us. So
I'm a
it's
marketing person, so that's why I'm like.
Yeah.
Well, Cushman too, though, right? Doesn't it?
It'll be on Cushman Wakefield's. I believe on theirs, but I get very few leads off of that. Yeah. So if someone's looking for office space, let's say in Waynesville, you have to hope that they Google office space Waynesville or Buffalo. Ours hopefully shows up near the top. I mean, I've seen it where other small companies show up higher. We've debated this a lot in my office because we're trying to get we've been debating it for a long time. We're trying to get a larger account with LoopNet where we can all, for whatever price, not being too bad, put all of our listings in there. It probably would help. There was issues, we had this issues years ago. LoopNet is now owned by a company called CoStar. CoStar, years ago, we stopped using because CoStar, there was some sort of legal thing going on. CoStar, when you put a listing on CoStar, that property, that information becomes their property. They can then sell it. And the way I recently found that out to be absolutely true was I have a listing, a building on Walden Avenue, 3825 Walden. It was the first one that when I rejoined LoopNet recently, the guy who's the sales guy walked me through it after I put my listing on there. And noticed they had all these other pictures on there that weren't my pictures. They were kind of crappy looking pictures. And I was asking him, why are these other pictures on there? He said, well, what we do is, let's say this property used to be listed with Hunt, for example. We keep those pictures that they had on there, and then we use them for yours. So it's showing that, whatever you're putting on there now becomes their property. But to answer your question, it's mostly through our website.
But isn't it true that anyone can technically sell a listing, say that you have listed, because it's not an exclusive listing?
Oh, they're all exclusive. Anything on our website is
Exclusive?
exclusive. Yeah,
I
100%.
didn't know how that worked, because I know our listings, we sign
Mhm.
an exclusive listing agreement.
Right. So when I started the business, when anyone starts in my office, my boss gives them 30 days. If you put up something like 20 signs in 30 days, you get a bonus $2,000. There are open listings out there. And if you ever see a commercial property with 2 signs on it, that means it's an open list.
Technically, I could just walk up to them and put my own sign up there also?
No, you should get to know his permission.
Yeah.
You should call him to get permission. It means so I haven't done an open listing in probably 20 years. Because I realized that when you're new, it's good, you get signs up, you get leads that way, blah, blah, blah. It's just awkward and weird if you have an open listing. Sometimes people won't even, there are certain small commercial firms locally that do probably 90% open listings. I know that. It's just, it's not, it doesn't make sense for me because I want to dedicate my time. If I sign a listing with the client, we dedicate them. You're giving them your word that you're going to spend some time on it. If I'm just throwing signs around and I have 50 signs out there, all with open listings, I'm not going to spend time on them. You can't expect me to spend time on something if you're not giving me exclusive. So we do, I'm sure I don't want to say, there's probably some pyramid signs out there that are not exclusive listings, but great majority, I'm betting 95% of them are, and anything on our website. We don't have the girls who run our website locally in our office. If our listing's up, she sends me an email and you have to get it reviewed, otherwise at some point the sign comes down. Not contractually, but like the way you have a contract with MLS, I think that says that you have to promise MLS. It's not for that reason, just because we don't, not the sign doesn't have to come down, but it comes off the website if it's not exclusive or that way.
So it's like advertising for someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna, we just don't put it, and I think we may have something on our website that may be a disclaimer that says, I'm not sure. I think our flyers say exclusive, say the word exclusive on them. I'm pretty sure they still do. So I mean, I've been doing business a long time. I like the business. It's just a lot of fun. It's good to do something that's fun. I think hopefully folks will enjoy what you're doing too. I'm sure you do. Was why keep doing it. It's a tough business that, in our business tends to be that if somebody makes it for, a year or two, then they're going to keep going. We have in my office, we have a range of ages, probably from 22 to 89. So it's nice to be it's nice to be kind of like there's quite a few people older than me in my age, which is nice. But the range of experience is just, incredible.
Do you remember Rachel was nesting?
Yeah, of course. Oh, no kidding. You friends with Rachel? No kidding.
Yeah.
So how many years has she been gone? I'm gonna
I
get
just asked her,
7,
I said,
8.
what years did you work at Fairness? 2007 to 11.
Yeah,
She's like, I don't know if they'll remember me because.
of course.
She's got 3 kids, she's married.
3 kids. Wow.
Her youngest is 5.
I think so. Your father's an accountant, right?
Yeah. He sold his business.
Sold
He's
business?
retired now, yeah.
I think when Rachel was with us downtown, we moved to downtown. I think she was with us then. I'm not sure.
She was with you, excuse me, I think she was downtown the entire time because I lived, I used to meet her downtown for lunch all the time.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, tell Rachel I said hi. I remember when she got married. I remember she was with us, I think, when she got married.
She got married in '09.
Yeah. Is she still doing the like the Ironman type things?
She hasn't done any, she's done any since she can't remember this, but now her kids are on with BMX and skiing and they compete. All three of her kids are wild, just like her, but
Nice.
sports and athletics and stuff.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I have a couple questions. John, hi.
Yeah.
You guys can hear me. I take it pretty good, right?
Yep.
Okay, this is our new Zoom system, so we're all excited about it. So as you were talking, I was trying to think of common scenarios that we as realtors, residential realtors, like almost cross over when it comes to commercial, where it's like almost out of our area of expertise, and it's either happened to myself or my agents have come to me with questions. So I thought, I mean, this might be like kindergarten type material questions for you, but for us it's perplexing. So I'm trying to think. So most recently I did have an agent list a commercial space for lease. And it's customary in residential real estate. I mean, we try to steer our client Craigslist. I mean, they're going to, I think, most times get a better response, more leads that way than just listing it in the MLS. So in the MLS, we'll do like a charge the client 1 month's rent. So like $1,000 apartment, we're offering out like a $500 commission to a buyer's agent. I mean, we're talking peanuts here. But when it comes to leasing commercial space, doesn't the commission payable go on the entire term? So like if it's $1,000 a month, so that's, times 60 months, that's $60,000 if it's a 5-year lease. Aren't commercial brokers getting paid differently than 1 month's rent?
It's a percentage. So, and leases can be very big money makers in our business. My largest deals ever involved in leases. Leases we do get, it's either, it varies from 5 to 6% of the entire lease amount. So, so it's 5% and they're payable. Nice thing is it's payable up front, which owners, small owners object to, but it's just the way it is when we work with developers, whether it's ULM, Benderson, Simonelli, whomever. We get paid a fee, usually 5% of the lease amount. If it's a 10-year lease, they get 5% of it upfront. You do the math, you figure a 5-year lease, I think, comes to about 3 months rent. Just figure if it was, maybe do something small, say it's $1,000 a month, that would be 60,000. Yeah, 5% would be 3 months rent. As the lease gets larger, it becomes a big percent more, but so that is how, and renewals as well. We get paid for our exclusive agreement as that we get paid for renewals also. So 5 years from now, they renew. Sometimes we'll do a reduced fee for renewals, but yes, you're correct, Jen.
Okay, another question regarding leases. So our clients, landlords, tenants, it will be the landlord, are they supplying their own leases? Or are we ever jumping in or you as a commercial broker with like a generic lease to?
You don't do leases. We tell them that they're land, that they or I'm not allowed in our office, not just me, all of us, to prepare leases or contracts anymore. So it's always been that, when I secure a tenant for an owner, I tell them they have to either prepare the lease or they have their attorney do it.
Okay, so you don't even write the contracts anymore. The lawyers are doing it.
Yeah, I'll prepare what's called a term sheet or an LOI. Usually we do an LOI, have the buyer sign it, have the buyer or tenant in this case sign a letter of intent with all the terms, give that to attorneys, let them prepare the contract. Because there is no fill in the blank type lease or contract. I mean, I know that you've got the BNR form, it's BNR, right? Or whatever, the form, fill in the blank. We don't have that. So many contracts are different, and leases, people tend to think, well, it's only a lease, it's not as important. Leases are extremely important because your relationship with that owner is going to go on for 5 years or 10 years, whatever it may be. So leases, there's so many things in a lease that they're so important. We just don't do them ourselves. Attorneys do them.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually have a question. I had a client that was, there was a property on Grant Street. It was listed for almost $1 million. And I thought that commercial spaces, that your percentage of commission was a little bit higher. Well, not you, but I thought commercial listings, the percentage for commission was higher. But in the MLS, it was only listed for 2%.
I don't know why, so they're not usually higher, I mean, but I don't know why somebody would do it for just 2%. I wouldn't do anything for 2%. Normal for sales, I mean, and again, for sales between, let's say, 5 to 7%, and 5 if it's over $1 million. I don't know why someone would do a listing for a sale for just 2%.
Yeah, I thought it was very low.
Was it 2% for the selling broker side or 2% total?
2% for the selling broker.
So maybe it was a 4% fee. Yeah, I think it sounds to me like somebody who just really wanted to do anything to get a listing. When I did that years ago, would take a listing for a smaller commission than I should have. I would guess that somebody who's kind of new in the business, maybe just did anything for a listing. But no, we don't normally have, I don't think it's normally higher percentages. And it's worth pointing out too, we do larger deals, but we do some really, really small deals that I don't think any of you here would want to deal with. And I don't brag about it, it stinks, but there are times, I mean, I did a deal card a couple of weeks ago for $7,200 deal, the lease, which means a $360 commission. So there's deals we do that are very small, and hopefully we don't do too many. Hopefully they just don't take up a lot of time.
Yeah, I just didn't know because commercial real estate is kind of like a different animal. So when I saw the 2% for the selling broker side, I was like, that seems very small.
Well, Amanda, businesses, I mean, businesses for sale, those are 8 to 12%.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's not bad.
Another question, John, for you, in all honesty, when a residential agent comes to you with, like, if you have a listing, a manufacturing facility, building, or anything, any type of listing, and a residential agent comes to you with a buyer, is it a little obnoxious for the commercial guys? Do you like roll your eyes in your head and say, oh God, here comes a residential agent that doesn't know anything about what they're doing regarding this? I mean, because I do have agents that show commercial properties sometimes, and I'm not well versed in it. They're not well versed in it. So therefore the client isn't being advised probably correctly. We're leaning on the commercial broker, but the agents don't want to give up the commission to pass it off.
I would, how do I put it right? Say it correctly. That, yeah, there's times when agents come and I know that they don't, they're probably not advising their people the right way. Reason I don't mind that is because if it's my listing, if I have a listing and you bring in somebody through, I don't care if you're advising them. It's not my job. I know that often the residential agents will, I've seen them do it, and so I don't mean to make this, say everyone will, but when they're not doing their job correctly, they just want to get the deal done because they say, well, it's a large deal, I just want to get it done. To me, if it's my listing, how about it? I don't, that's not my, I'm not concerned about your clients. It's no, so I mean, I'm okay with it. I think when I first started, I mean, they would get a little, I don't know if it's obnoxious, but I didn't like it. But yeah, no, I do, I've dealt with quite a few residential agents over the years. Some do seem to definitely know what they're doing, but it's not a knock to them because I would have no idea. If I was trying to sell my house, I would have no idea. I don't know how to sell a house. I would never try to sell a house. I've never done it. So yeah, no, I don't mind dealing with them.
Okay.
They may ask.
So to kind of piggyback Shannon's comment, do you have any suggestions on how we could better prepare ourselves before we have a conversation with you?
Well, so here's what I want to offer to, and I didn't get to yet. I mean, there's two things, a couple things. If any of you want to list commercial properties yourselves, go ahead. I mean, and I'm here to, I'll give you all my contact info. I'm here to, if you want to list one and you just have some general questions, want advice, feel free to call me. I'm not going to, at that point, then yeah, we've become competitors, but I don't care. I mean, I'm not gonna, I'll help you as much as I can within reason. So there's that. If you have a client who wants to list a commercial property and you don't feel comfortable with, you think they'd be better serviced elsewhere, I'd be happy to do a referral type thing where, you introduce me to the client and I'd pay you a 25% referral fee. So this way they hopefully get serviced well. You'll make some money on the referral, and that's one way to do it. As far as questions to ask me beforehand, you mean?
Yeah, like if you had a listing that I had a buyer that was interested in, and I would just called you out of the blue, kind of what
Yeah.
would be helpful for me to look up prior to having a conversation?
Oh,
with
is
you?
that what you meant? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't really answer that
that was a
question.
good answer too.
Yeah.
But also good to know.
I'm sorry, that was the wrong answer. It depends on the property type. There's so many different factors involved. It comes after doing it for a while. You get to learn what's important. For instance, in an industrial property, what's important are the ceiling heights, the truck doors, the power. An office user, a retail user, that questions wouldn't matter. I don't know. It'd be hard to prep you to say what's the best questions to ask. If you come, yeah,
It'd probably be similar to residential in a way, like kind of get all of your clients' needs, like
Yeah.
in detail.
yes, true. Yeah, know what they need. I mean, and so the way I look at this business, and I voted it years ago, is important thing in our business is to remember that the commission is not the most important part of the deal. So whenever you're doing any deal, the commission, don't ever let the commission be the main focus of the deal. The main focus of the deal is servicing the client. If you don't feel like you're servicing the client properly, and in my office, we often share assignments amongst ourselves because maybe I'll get a referral of something that's a medical space, and I don't focus on medical space. I'll bring in somebody else. So if you don't feel like you're servicing the client properly, that's, I think, your own personal red flag to think maybe I should do it with somebody else or however. If you don't know the right questions to ask, maybe that's answer enough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
What kind of training do commercial agents have? Like, what is your training?
We go into the conference room and the boss gives us a map and highlights it and tells us where to go.
There's no
was-
courses to take or anything in commercial?
No.
That's what
so-
I've actually honestly been trying to find for myself. I want to take commercial, like continuing education. There just isn't anything.
Our licensing is the same. And I usually do, so years ago, my company, up until a few years ago, maybe they'll start it again. My company used to offer a few times a year. They had good courses, really good courses, and they were in Syracuse, where they were 7.5 hours, whatever it was. It was a one-day course that counted towards continuing ed, and it was focused on, whether it was retail, industrial, it was focused on those things. It was only for agents of the company. They haven't done that in a few years. Maybe it was because of COVID they stopped it. For now, I just do, my license is due in June, and I have to sign up, and I just do it online. It's the same courses as you do. There are designations, just like, there's the SIOR and CCIM designations, but those are very, very, long-term and take a lot of time and money, truthfully, to put into the investments.
When you have a client that is looking for a certain space or lease or whatnot, where do you go to find them? Do you go on LoopNet? Do you have a bunch of different websites you go to, or what is your best resource to find the property?
Depends on the type of space. If it's some of the easiest, some of them, if it was, looking for, 10, 20,000 square feet of, let's say, office space. I know there's not many. It's probably for lease. Leases are easier because there's only, it's mostly through the developers. So we know the developers well, we've worked with them for years. So it becomes just a matter of calling the developers and seeing what's available and what could be available. Because sometimes when you're looking for space for a client, you don't just focus on what's available right now. You focus on what could be available because such and such company may be moving, they may be relocating, they may have a lease coming up for renewal. Those things all drive deals, and that's where we try to bring some benefit to the client. But if again, it could be just what you're saying, Michelle, is Deb, I'm sorry, Deb, why is it Michelle? Is searching LoopNet, searching our competitors, asking around, just in our office, when we have our sales meetings, often things like that come up. Shannon?
Yeah, I'll jump in for one more comment, maybe not so much a question, but John pretty much nailed it. Like if there's a client that is, leaning towards buying or selling a commercial property, I know you guys want commission and that, but if it really feels like out of your wheelhouse, out of your area of expertise, I highly endorse John. I mean, he knows Lancaster well. He's been in commercial real estate like years and years. He really knows his stuff, and to refer out and get a referral fee, that's the best way to handle our clients and advise them properly, is just to refer to a specialist. And then, through the years, John has given us referrals. So, two different animals, commercial and residential. Piggybacking off this class, this commercial conversation, next month, we're going to have like a real estate rental property investment course. I think we were talking about even maybe meeting bi-monthly to talk about rentals. So, look for that. That's right in my wheelhouse. So I can answer a lot of questions when it comes to that. And thank you, John, for coming in. I appreciate all your expertise and insights. It's very interesting, a lot of the stuff you talked about.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Yeah, I want to hopefully pass them out.
Nice to meet you.
Get everybody's name from.
Thank you.
You look familiar.
Yeah, I came to the industrial day. I worked with Richard on the North American Drive.
Oh,
Yeah. I told Shannon to do this broker, yeah.
That's why I knew you. Oh, good.
Yeah.